Hey y'all, Fred here. Thanks so much for joining me today. We're going to do a little something different, obviously. We're going to work on some sharpening. We've done a couple of videos about this 𝗂𝗚𝗦𝗃 knife, which is the Para 3 version by 𝗂𝗚 Knives. It came with a pretty flat angle on the initial grind there. It's not unsharp, but it definitely don't want to start testing because this is supposed to be a M390 blade. I want to put my own new edge on this thing before I do any testing with it. A couple of reasons. One is the whole sharpening process that I'm about to do will give me a good feedback as to whether this is really a very soft steel or maybe something a little harder like what you might expect from M390. So I definitely wanted to start here with this one. And I'm not sure how much of this I'm going to show. I'll probably just speed up. Maybe I'll do a talk over while I've got it and fast forward. I'm just now getting started, actually. One of the things you can't really see too well is you take a Sharpie. First thing I like to do, it's not necessary, but I want to find out what this starting angle is. It's almost weird where one angle is sharper than the other. And so I'd like to see, you don't have to do this. Oops, sorry about banging the camera there. I'd like to see what the starting angle is. What angle did it come from the factory? And I suspect what I'm going to find is it came with two different angles. And the way you do this is you basically just use your ceramic rod. You could use whatever the highest one. I think I have an 800. And run a few passes over it to see what it takes to take off the Sharpie. So I have taken my Sharpie and I go all the way across this edge here. And I know that won't come out well on camera. Maybe if I get the angle just right. You can see there's a little black Sharpie. I did it on both edges, the top and the bottom. And so first thing you've got to do is you've got to get your table angle right. You can see right here, I'm right at about a 0.25. So I'm going to hit to zero that out. Have to be careful on a rubber mat like this because even a little bit of pressure will change it. So you can see this is not wanting to zero out for me. So it's a 0 over there. I always measure on both sides just to make sure. Okay, I got a 0 over there. So now what I do is pull this down, and if I put this up here like so, that tells me that right now my rod is set to a 22.25 angle. So I'm going to do a few passes and then I'm going to inspect the blade to see if all of the Sharpie has come off or only at the very top of the blade or only at the very bottom of the grind. And that'll tell me if it comes off all the way across, then I will know it was sharpened at a 22.25, 22 1/4. So I'm just going to take a few passes like that. Now I have to get up close and try to inspect it, and I can see already from here, that's not getting the edge of the blade. It's getting the top side, but not the bottom edge of the blade. So it's a little steeper of an angle than that. So I need to, let's see where we'll put this now. So we're at a 22. I'm going to raise it up. And let's go to a 24. Sometimes they will come from the factory with a 24-degree angle. So I'll take a few more passes and just take a look and see, am I getting all the Sharpie off? It doesn't really matter because I'm going to grind all this away anyhow. So it doesn't matter how smooth you are with this process. And so I'm probably gonna pause the video so I can, one of the things I like to do, my phone, which I'm recording on here, actually has, I don't know if y'all know, iPhones have a fantastic magnifier on them that will zoom in really well into very close items, but I can't do it while I'm recording the video. So I'm gonna pause this video here. I'm gonna do some inspections and we'll come back and see where we're at in just a minute. All right, thanks. Okay, this is a cool experiment. I'm not sure how well it will work. I'm recording on my screen while I use the magnifying lens. You can see me zooming in and out, obviously. And this is the built-in magnifier on the phone. So if this works out, that'll be awfully cool. So you can see it's gotten all of the blade towards the tip here. There's how magnified it is. There's my fingerprint. And then as you go towards the back of the blade, it's not hitting the tip of the blade at all. So basically what we have is a very uneven grind, which is not totally surprising, I guess. A lot of these are done by belts and by hand, and they just whiz it across the belt a few times. So 24 is not even touching the back of this blade, which is interesting. So I'm gonna do a few passes here and see if maybe I just haven't got to it yet. But that'll make you dizzy in a big video. Looks different from my angle, right? All right, so now what do we got? So it's now getting the top edge of the blade, but not the bottom. So that tells me this is probably steeper than a 24-degree angle. Ooh, fingernails look gross up close. Sorry about that. So whatever they've got here, I'm going to have to crank the angle up a little bit, and we'll come back at it with a even higher angle and see if that does any good. All right, so let me zoom out a little bit and turn my angle on. What I want to show you is I am now at 26 degrees on this sharpening system right here. Let me move this out of the way and show you what we're at on the blade still. And this is what I was figuring was going on. So we'd already hit the tip of the blade at around a 24. But now at a 26, let me zoom in a little bit more. I'm starting to get the back of the blade. So the back edge of this blade, by the way, this is the side that was sharpened at a much steeper angle, or a much shallower angle, a higher degree. This is the 26 degrees, right? But it's still not even touching the middle of this blade, which tells me the angle they've cut this side of the bevel on is more than 26 degrees. So we're going to crank it back up again. Let's put that straight out. Put our angle finder back on here, right? And up we go again. Let's go up to 28 degrees. All right, we're at 28 degrees now. And we're going to see, is that going to get the middle of this blade? Sorry if I'm bouncing around. This is probably a difficult experiment to do while trying to record it. All right, let's see. Man, we are still just starting to, so you can see now we've got more of the back of the blade, but you can still see the black right there. I should zoom in a little bit more. See the black Sharpie? So we're starting now to get the edge. So here we go. We're just now getting, let me see if I can hold my phone still. We're just now getting half of that bevel off. So the front was about a 24 up here. All the way in the back was about a 26. And this part in the middle of the blade right here is at a 28, and I still am not high enough. This is probably like a 30 or 32 degree bevel on this side, which is crazy ridiculous, which is why, again, I wanted to sharpen this knife and put a real edge on it before I decide to do any cut testing with it. I will tell you, it does feel like, having run now, just this one stone, this ceramic stone, it does feel pretty hard. I mean, it's definitely not taking away any steel, which indicates a pretty hard type of steel behind it. So I don't know. I'm just also trying to figure out, is this real M390 from the feedback I get from sharpening. So anyhow, we're going to crank this grade up again to I guess we're going to go to a 30 at this point in time. So let's turn this back on, and up we go. I've never seen one go this high. All right, so we're at about a 30. Lock that in right there. Okay, 30 degrees. Take my angle finder off. Let's see if this is going to remove the Sharpie from the middle of this blade or not. All right, put that back up. Let's come in, kind of wipe off the edge of the blade so we get the gunk off. And now we zoom in. Well, I thought we were zooming. There we go. So now we've gotten all the back cleared off, and now you can see, yeah, almost everything is coming off the belly. So we're at least putting a dent. So it still hasn't even gotten to the edge of that. So this is legitimately in the middle of this blade, probably 32 degrees is the angle. And I knew that. I mean, you can tell by looking at both sides of the blade that this was a very flat angle that they cut. I think the other one is going to be more like a 22 to 24, and this side ended up being a 28 to 30 degree angle. So again, that's just, I think, somebody by hand, you can literally see how wide the bevel is here and how much it changes going down here towards the middle and towards the back end. So I'm going to stop with the ceramic rod at this point, because that tells me what I needed to know. This side, at least, is about 26 to 30 degrees across the edge of this blade, which is ridiculous, but, you know, that's what you get sometimes. So now I think I'm going to, I'll pause, we'll go back, I'll reset the camera, and we'll start working through our stone progressions here and trying to reprofile this blade, which, if it's M390, may take a bit of work. So we're going to find that out together. Here we go. Okay, so we have now figured out that they've got everything between a 24 and a 32 bevel on this one side of this blade. So what I want to do is to reset my my angle back down to 18. So that's the degree I'm going to put on it. I've gone and gotten my lowest stone, which is a 220 grit. That's the lowest one that comes with this Pro system. And I'm just going to really grind away here. And I don't need to, I'm not worried about doing any particular kind of scratch patterns or anything like that. Right now, I've got to remove a lot of steel in order to get this thing reprofiled all the way down to 18 degrees. This is going to be a lot of work and a lot of steel coming off the edge here. And if this is really an M390, like it says it is, then it could take a minute. So we're going to see here. Let's get to grinding. And again, no pattern. I'm just going to saw this thing back and forth until I can see. I've also, by the way, I did go back and re-Sharpie the entire edge bevel so that I'll be able to see when we've removed all of that black Sharpie material on the blade. That'll tell us. The other thing I didn't mention is that if you can see under here, this Pro system does come with this extra little support widget here. You can plug that in just like that. What that does is that helps keep the blade here, keeps this from bouncing around up and down, so you don't end up, you know, uneven cuts or uneven grinding. So that's it. Let's get to grinding. Okay, that's making shorter work of it than I thought. It does feel pretty firm. You know, it's so hard to tell, and I am not like a real pro knife sharpening guy. I've sharpened a few in my time, but what I'm looking for now is evenness of the bevel. I can see it's definitely thicker here, and it thins out there, and it's very thin here, so I need definitely to do some work on that. And we still haven't gotten all the way down to the apex of the blade. I can see it's still black around the very edge, and you can see the tip here needs some work as well. So keep on going, try to keep nice, smooth, even strokes, and we'll just let the stones do the work. Roll over the edge of that tip there. You can hear the difference as you roll over different parts of the blade. You can still see this is definitely unevenly grinding. We haven't reached the apex here. The whole blade should be about this thick. You can see in spots. Let me see if I can tilt it in. Maybe that's a little better. Hard to see. I'll have to see if I can zoom in on this. Let's see. Can we go in? Well, that's about as far as we get. It's hard to see, maybe through the camera. I'm trying to see if I can see it. Parts of the bevel here, you can see are thicker here and thicker here. It thins out at the front, the middle, and the back are all thin. So, and we still haven't quite cut the black off, so we definitely have a bit more grinding to do here. So let's get back to it. All right, let's talk about the point of diminishing returns. At some point, because the original blade was not ground properly, I may end up, like at the back here, you can clearly see it's not getting anywhere near, but there's been material removed from the back of this blade. It moves back up again in here. I may have to just decide to leave that and just focus on the front edge of the blade. This is starting to even out now. We do have a bigger belly here because I've been trying to grind away the heel of that blade. So I think I'm going to stop doing that and just focus on evening out the front half here. You know, at some point you can't take all the steel off your knife just to try to have an even bevel on it. So I'm just gonna try to now even out this front side, and then we'll switch sides. Okay, I'm going to end up with the same problem at the tip. Is the angle it was cut at. I need to get down with my magnifying glass. Let me wipe off some of the shavings. I have a damp rag I use to wipe this thing off. You don't need to wet it, but I do like to wipe the shavings off. I see them starting to build up. All right, I'm going to pause, switch back into my my magnifier, and we'll take a closer look. All right, we don't really need the magnifier. My regular camera will do a fine job. This is what I was saying up close. Back here, the original cut goes up in towards the tang of the blade, so I'm not going to be able to get that on this pass. And in order to even that out, what I would have to do is basically grind away so much more material all the way across the front of this thing. You see those shavings collecting. That's why you keep that wet rag. Keep those shavings wiped off so it doesn't contaminate your next set of stones. At any rate, I'm about happy with this for now. The other thing, obviously, we're not going to get the tip much better than that either without taking off a lot more material. I might try to hit it again, but you don't want to roll over the tip. So I'll see. So I have a fairly even height bevel all the way across here. It's not perfect. But it's definitely improved, and you can see how much wider that bevel is now at 18 degrees compared to what it was at 30 degrees, right? So I think I may try to work this tip a little bit more, see if I can get that to widen up. It should be wider out here where this material is thicker, but I may or may not work too much more of it because I don't want to end up just continuing to grind away all of this side of the blade. So let's hook it back up, see what we can do, and we'll go from there. All right, see if we can work this tip just a little bit more. Yeah, it's just only going to get thinner at this point. And when I move it to the other side, I think it may even it up. So let's put, oh, you got to, in order, because I have this little table underneath it, you have to tilt it back and then push the button down. Now you can rotate your blade into that position and lean it back down on your table. All right, make sure the knife is stable. Let's just wipe down the blade. I can see this is, well, I'm gonna redo my Sharpie here because this is kind of worn away on this side now a little bit. I like to have a nice crisp line. It's definitely cutting my Sharpie, so if anything, we've made it more sharper with our 220 grit. All right, let's dive in on this side and start grinding away, still on 220. All right, I think I'm gonna pause at that. I've definitely, I think, reprofiled at this point. And I'm the same situation I can feel as I run towards the back end of the blade here. I'm not gonna get that out unless I end up grinding a whole lot more material down back here. So I'm gonna have to live with a unsharpened heel of the blade. If any of y'all have any suggestions on that, other than just to keep on grinding away material, I am all ears. But I've got a fairly even grind now all the way around. Same thing at the tip. It narrows out again at the tip like the last one did as well. I can definitely feel I have gotten a burr on the underside. Up here, very good. But the burr is not very strong down here. So I think I need a little bit more work. Now I'm feeling, yeah, just a little bit of a burr, but not as much. So I'll do a little more work here, and then we'll move up the stones, keep going. Okay, that's good. Got a nice burr there. So I'm going to take off my 220 stone and wipe it down. Just have like a damp rag just to, wipe off. You can see that, well, maybe you can't. Let's see if that helps. Nope. All right, let's move this back up. You can see all the gunk that has collected all of the shavings on the blade there. So we're going to wipe that down, move up to the next blade. I'll be right back. All right, I'm a little overly, anal about these things, but I like to wipe down the little tray that holds these sharpening stones and make sure I put away everything else, and even try to wipe down as much as I can around the blade itself before I move up to the next stone. So we're now going up to the 320. I've flipped the knife over, so this is the side with the burr. We're just going to keep grinding. Now I'm going to try to go a little bit more of a pattern to try to develop a consistent pattern if possible. So here we go. Okay, that's 20 strokes out and back, and I can already feel it's starting to develop a burr on the bottom side. Not real happy that this is a much thicker bevel than the rest, but I can live with it. I just want a sharp knife. It doesn't need to be pretty. I'd send it out to somebody for a professional job if I wanted it to be pretty. I'm not getting a burr back here, but you can see how thin that bevel is. It's just because, again, that thing rides back up right there. So I'm not happy at all about that. I think I'm going to go maybe 10 more passes on this side, see if I can get a little bit more of a burr down here. But I don't want to make the rest of it uneven either. So let's go 10 more tries. All right, I lied. I went more. Obviously, I did 10. Then I really tried to focus on this edge, and then just evened it back out. But I've got a good burr on the rest of this blade to about this spot right here, and so I'm not going to go any more than that. Let's flip it over, bring it back, and we're going to go at least 20 strokes on this side. Let's see how it goes here. Same thing. All right, I did 23, I think, on that side. Doesn't have to be perfect, just trying to keep it close. And I have definitely moved the burr back over to this side. So now it's just chasing the burr from side to side, but I think I'm gonna call it quits on this grit here, and we're gonna move up to the next one. So let me pause, switch these out, wipe this down, be right back. All right, we're now at the 400, and I may stop at 600. I haven't really decided that yet. I have flipped the knife back over to this side again. I have a nice burr all the way around here. So let's try 10 to 15 strokes and see what this gets us here. At this 10, let's see where we're at. So yeah, I can already feel the burr has moved to the other side, except at the tip could use a little bit more. So counting anything at all there, that's got to be 15 or 20 strokes per side at least. So now I'm up to 30 to 40 strokes, and I do have a decent little burr coming up. Yep, right there on the tip. Obviously, the burr gets smaller each time you go up in grits, but I feel good about that. Let's flip it over and work the other side. Now, we'll knock the burr off of this side, right? All right, that's about 22 strokes on each side over there. And yes, I have flipped the burr back over to this side. So again, not perfect, not even close, but we're definitely moving the progression the way we want it to go. So now it's time to move up to the next stone. Trying to feel sharpness. Definitely doesn't quite feel razor sharp yet. It's not dull, certainly will cut you, but obviously we have a nice burr on there. So let me switch out some stones and we'll keep on going. All right, here we go with the 600. And depending on how this turns out, I haven't flipped my knife over, I may stop at a 600 and then go to ceramic kind of honing and then a leather strop to finish it off and see. You know, I don't want a mirror edge. I want a pretty rough, toothy edge. I prefer to have a little bite, and so stopping at 600 is certainly a good way to get there. Let's just see what this does for us. Okay, that was about 26 strokes. I want to go a little extra because it's starting to come in nicely. Let's see if I can get that zoomed in. That's going to be bad lighting. It's starting to smooth out is really all I was trying to say there. I like the way it's starting to look. We'll look at it closer up in just a minute. Let's go back here. But I like where it's at. So let's, boy, takes a lot of hands to finagle this, but that tray underneath there is absolutely worth having it. Yep, got a nice burr on this side now. So let's do the same thing here. Okay, that was a little extra. I think it's 25 or 26 strokes. And I have a nice, barely a very fine burr, which is exactly what you want. It's very tiny now. You can only feel it with your fingernail, less so. You can feel a little with your fingertip, depends on how sensitive that is. But yeah, there's definitely a burr on that side. You can see there's some dark spots there. Oh, that was just a collection of steel from where I was grinding it. So because I have a burr and I think I want to stop at 600, I'm going to flip it over again and give it a couple of passes just on this side. One, two, just to knock off the majority of that burr. Yeah, that's almost moved it back to the bottom side again, which tells me it did. So even those 2 strokes is enough now. And what that means is that you're at a pretty fine apex. The grind isn't the most beautiful in the whole world, but I've got the good apex, and that burr consistently is flipping from side to side all the way across. That tells me that we're golden. All right, so what I'm going to do now is switch out for my ceramic rod, and we'll do a bunch of passes with the ceramic just to really fine hone that edge. I'm wiping down my 600 grit plate. Now I've got my ceramic. I'm going to wipe it off just to get any of that. You know, we wiped all that Sharpie with it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be clean to work, right? Doesn't have to be dry to work either. So, did I flip my knife? I've already flipped my knife, and I've already put a little bit of a burr on that bottom side with just those 2 passes. So, let's flip it back over here. We're going to start here. Because this is ceramic, we're not really taking a lot of material off. I don't know how many strokes. You play it by ear. I'm going to go 10 or 15, and we'll see what that does. Always try to go the full length of the rod of the ceramic of all your plates so that you're using all of the diamonds or all the ceramic evenly on there. Yep, let's move the burr over to that side. So let's flip it and do it again. It feels buttery smooth, I can tell you that. The first stroke, you could feel it just knocking that burr off a little bit. Now I'm just kind of trying to polish up the blade overall a little bit more. I'm obviously moving the burr now to the bottom side, and we'll knock that off again. We'll finish it off with the strop and see how well of a job we did. Will it cut? That's the magic question. Yep, I can feel just a tad, so only 1 or 2 strokes here. And that's it. I felt it literally coming off the blade. All right, so I'm going to pause, get my strop. We'll strop it up and see what she does. All right, so I'm definitely not happy with the shape of the edge. You can see on this side in particular, it's pretty bad in terms of the thickness. Right here in this part of the blade, you can see it looks a little thicker than the rest. You got to get that light just right. But otherwise, it came out pretty good. You can see how much taller the bevel is. That's one of the things, if you don't know that, when you get a new knife, how tall is that beveled edge? The taller it is, that means the lower the angle, like more towards an 18 degree. The shorter this is, then it's going to be more like a 24 to, in this case, 32 degree edge. So you can see this is a much taller bevel than it was when we started. So let's run it over the strop a few times and see if we can really hone that edge. I actually have a smoother side, but it doesn't have much compound on it. And when I first run a strop, I like using this rougher side for some reason. I just feel like it may help more, although it's less even, so it's probably not as good, but it's soft. It's obviously soft leather, and you can see the green stropping compound is pretty good. That's what really does most of the heavy lifting. Let's go to this side and see. And you're really feeling for, can you feel a burr on one side? Does it scrape the strop on one side more than it feels like it's scraping the strop on the other side? All right, I think I'm going to feel that. It feels pretty good, and I'll tell you, that feels like a nice, sharp, bitey edge. All right, let's grab a sheet of paper. Do the old redneck cut test, huh? I like that. That is a definite laser beam. I mean, all day long. That's as sharp as any knife in my collection right there. I mean, sideways, long ways, doesn't matter. This thing is now a slicey beast. It is definitely not as sharp down here at the heel of the blade as we talked about already, just because of the way the original grind came. You can see the bevel is not even anywhere near as thick down there. But from this point forward is laser beam sharp, and because I left it at a 600 on the grits, on the stones, that's going to be a nice bitey edge. So we're going to find out. Now the question, do I think it's M390? You know, it's so hard to tell. It feels like good steel, okay? Let's start there. It definitely doesn't feel like the 5CR13 or even an 8CR13. So it's not that. And we know from XRF tests on at least other versions of these knives that they tested as real M390. The question is the heat treat. Is it heat treated well or not? And it's going to be hard for me to tell on that from just the grinding. It definitely feels like a harder, tougher steel. You know, you're using diamond plates that are pretty good quality diamond plates that you get from Worksharp. So it definitely cut through the blade well. We're going to find out. Now this thing is ready for our cut tests. Clearly, it passes the redneck cut test with flying colors. Now I just have to live with this action of a bouncy knife. It has improved a little bit once you kind of know how to deal with it. You can see it's still not as smooth as I would like. Definitely not as smooth as the OK81. Hey y'all, so I just wanted to do a little update. After I finished doing the sharpening on this, which came out nice, as you just saw, I guess, in the video just a minute ago here. I also went back and sharpened this one. I figured, well, same steel. Let's see how the two of them compare, because technically they're supposed to be the exact same. And as far as I can tell, I think they're probably using the same exact steel blanks for both of these knives, they're just obviously cutting one down a little bit different shape and size than the other. So both being supposedly M390, both going into the same OK, custom batches, you would think they would both do the same. I don't know, and it's a difficult thing to tell. I'm not an expert level sharpening person yet, and so it's hard for me to tell for sure. But really, all I wanted to say here is it feels like this one was harder than this one. Now, it doesn't mean this one, the 223, is not M390. This definitely, as I mentioned just a minute ago, feels pretty hard. It definitely is not a soft like 8CR, 5CR type of steel. I don't even know if it'd be a 9CR, although now you're getting into a hardness level that's a little bit more difficult. Although you would think, 8 and 9CR are not that far off, or pretty good ways off of M390. This one felt harder, is all I wanted to say. Took me a lot less time because I wasn't shooting a video while I did it, but in the process of reprofiling this edge, it felt like this was a harder steel than that one. Either way, the end result is good. I didn't want to, bore you with another whole long video, but this thing is absolutely laser beam sharp all day long. This is as sharp as any knife I have in my toolkit right now. And this is now, a favorite. So I want to also say this. There's nothing like sharpening up an old knife to really bring it back to life and make you fall in love with it all over again. This knife is a really well-built knife. I did the whole review. You obviously saw that. If not, you can go watch it. But the action on this thing is perfect. I would call it flawless. You had to cut away the scales, so it takes a bit of work to get it there, in terms of just cutting away the lock. But I didn't have to work on this beyond that, like I did have to work on the pivot and the screws and the washers and all that with this one. I've got it close, and I do still kind of like it now that I've got the action figured out, and now that it's sharpened up, as sharp as it is. But I'll tell you, that makes this one really awesome, because this one is guillotine drop shut on those bearings. I do have skiffs in there. That certainly helps. But the action on this is beautiful. So anyhow, just wanted to share that with you, the difference I noticed in the two steels, which should have been more or less the same. It's really, really close. But it felt like this was a little bit harder. So was this in a different batch that was heat treated a little bit better than this batch? I don't know. Hard to say. And honestly, y'all, a pro may look at both these knives and sharpen them and say, nope, that's the exact same thing. It's that close. I just thought I'd share that observation with you, and that, sharpen your knives, because it'll bring them back to life for you. You really love and want to carry them and use them again. This one hasn't gotten nearly the love that I wanted to give it, because I just keep getting new knives and keep falling in love with brand new knives. It's that curse, that slippery slope of the next great knife. But man, don't sleep on this one. This is a real banger, especially when you put your own edge on it. Get rid of that factory edge and reprofile it down to 18 degrees. This thing becomes a laser beam. Looking forward to doing some cut testing. We'll see how well those laser beams hold up in our testing coming up here soon. Otherwise, y'all have a great day. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.